I think my dad, back then, he was really scary. As soon as he walked in the door, if he didn't hug you or make eye contact with you, or even if you felt something off, you're like, leave dad alone, he's not having a good day. One time I remember I was sitting at the table with my brother for breakfast, and it was like a movie. My mom was, facing the stove, she was cooking her breakfast, and she didn't say a single word for about 5 minutes, and so we're just sitting there. And so she turns around and half of her face is normal. I'm like, okay, so I guess she was just fine. And then she turns around with the rest of her face, and then half of her face is like black and blue with a bloodshot eye. And just seeing that, to go from what it was, like it was all joyful and everything when I was young, to seeing my mom go through that, just to see such a beautiful woman like get battered that way, it was really hard on my brother and me. I didn't really know who Jesus was until after my parents divorced. And I remember my friend was coming back to the US, and he's like, hey, I'm coming back to Chicago, and my brother is a youth pastor, you should come hang out with us. And I would go, and slowly I started to get ministered to. So the head pastor walked over to me out of the blue. I was just kind of sitting there, just looking around. And she said, can I pray for you? And she was very sweet. She just started prophesying over me like, hey, God sees who you are. God knows that you've been struggling with your self-worth, and he wants you to know that he doesn't think you're ugly. He doesn't think you're a loser. And he knows that you're having a hard time in school. And he knows that you're worried about entering high school, but he wants you to know that you're going to do great. And he's got great plans for your life. So just have faith. And immediately that's when I knew that my life was going to change, was because someone else loved God enough and obeyed God enough to come see a little 5'2" Russell from the movie Up looking Asian kid to prophesy over me. So it was pretty cool. I tend to tie performance to my value as a human being. And so I would serve on Sundays every week because that was sort of my own confirmation that, hey, if I do this for people, I will have friends and I'll be loved. And I did that so much in San Diego that I got burned out. And so by the time I moved to New York, I was sitting, it was downtown Brooklyn because we had 5 campuses at the time. And I was sitting at the corner seat closest to the door. So I would enter as worship was ending so no one could talk to me in the foyer. And I would leave while they were praying out after the sermon. I remember there's this guy, Kevin Smigilski, who would take the youth kids after the worship would end upstairs. And every time he had to take them, he would have to walk by my seat. And every Sunday that I saw him, he would make eye contact with me, which already I was like, oh God, please don't talk to me. And he would be like, hey buddy, and he'd wave at me. He's like, how are you? How was your week? And I'd be like, good, you weirdo. And I would just think in my mind like, I know what you're doing. Stop trying to be so nice to me. Then one day during the sermon, they did an altar call of who wants to rededicate their life to Jesus. And I lifted my hand, and there's this lady, Brittany Smigilski, who came up to me after the service and said, hey, I know this might be a little out of the blue, but I just wanted to let you know that God has plans for you, and he sees what you're going through, and he still loves you. And later I found out that they were married. So the weird guy that was waving at me and his wife were leading a dinner party. And I remember I would go to her dinner party. I would commute 25-30 minutes to get there. I'd stay for 5 minutes and I'd leave because I didn't want to interact with people. And Kevin, he would just notice it right away. And instead of making me feel like forcing me to interact with people, what he'd do is he'd be like, hey, do you want to actually come downstairs outside and greet people at the door with me? We would say hi to people, and he'd ask me small questions about how my week was, where I came from. I just was so hungry for real friendships, deep friendships. And Kevin, he genuinely cared about who I was as a person, what I was going through. And so that's what kept me coming back. It was just his love, to love me where I was at, and to love me enough to help me move forward from a lot of the hurt that I was carrying. I really believe that people, especially the church family and the community that we have here, they're the physical, tangible Jesus that we have. And it really is people who show me God's just unending love for me, and I really want to do the same for other people.